Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. And today I have the privilege of being in conversation with a service designer who provides creative problem solving and innovation strategies to clients. He lives and breathes design, combining his passion for the arts and with business acumen. A multidisciplinary thinker, he earned his BS in Industrial and Systems Engineering at North Carolina A&T, his MA in Design Leadership from MICA, and his MBA from Johns Hopkins. Please welcome Brandon Ball. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, and let's get right into it. You talk to somebody, you hear design is out there living and breathing it. I want to get that design story. So if you will, give us that kind of elevator pitch, your vital stats, your background, like that I didn't cover in the synopsis, and
Right.
Also what's your design story?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of give you a flavor of what kind of got me into design. So undergrad, while I was at A&T, I was a part of a crew. We used to throw some parties, right? And once one of the guys left, he was a year ahead of me. He left. He was making all the flyers, and then I was like, I want to do this. And we were trying to do a party, and I was like, reached out to someone. It was like, oh, it's gonna be this much. I was like, nah, I'm not charging that much or paying that much. So, being an engineer, I knew somebody that kind of had the Adobe Creative Suite, hacked it for me, and I was like, okay, let me grab a copy of this. Let me just teach myself how to do this. And it's something I found that I enjoyed, and people start reaching out to me to do the same thing. So even when I started my professional career after I graduated, people would start reaching out to me like, hey, do some flyers. So where I kind of got into it from that angle, but then when I was working as an engineer at General Electric, we've heard in the news, General Electric started laying off a lot of people. I was a part of one of those layoffs, and I was like, okay, this is a part of my career. I want to do something more creative that I'm more passionate about. So that kind of led me to do some research about different graduate programs. So I was looking at traditional MBA programs, but I was also looking at just design schools. So at the time, design management became a thing, or service design. I was looking, and since I'm from Atlanta, I was looking at SCAD, which is in Savannah, but they have an Atlanta campus, and I actually took a few classes there. So I always delve, and I was taking a video class or a photography class. I just wanted to kind of enhance my creative skills. But when I found out about the program with Johns Hopkins and MICA, and I went and came and visit, I was like, oh, this is the perfect fit. I get the best of both worlds. I get an MBA and a design degree. Yeah. More on the strategic level too, because even though I know I can dabble in the creative suite, I have friends that are taught, or they went to school for graphic design or animation. They can run circles around me, but I appreciate the aesthetics they provide, but I still want to kind of tap into it. So that's kind of a high level how I kind of got into design. I'm coming from a technical background, kind of pivoting over to a more creative side. So yeah.
I find that, and thank you for sharing that. I find that being able to combine some of those problem solving skills, and I rely on my problem solving skills as well. I'm a data analyst by day. Right. That it's a certain side of the brain that you're using to be able to creatively work around certain things, kind of, maybe not jump over, maybe not run through, but maybe get around certain roadblocks. So that's what I find that's interesting. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the connection to the Open Studies program. So
correct.
From your vantage point, how would you define the mission of the Open Studies program, and what resonated most with you about that mission?
Yeah, so like I said, I think to be quite candid, when I visited the program, I didn't know design leadership was in Open Studies or vice versa. But I mean, the fact that they're looking at it from a professional standpoint and offering more programs that are more innovative or kind of meet the new industry needs, that's kind of what resonated with me. So the fact that they went out and say, okay, we have this design leadership program, but we need a partner for an MBA to kind of give you that traditional business background. I think they're being more forward thinking about what the industry needs. So that's kind of what resonates. And the funny thing is, I'm now an adjunct faculty member in Open Studies. So I graduated, now I'm teaching in their Business of Art and Design program. So a big shout out to the Open Studies program for, keeping things innovative. They actually reach out to me when they're thinking about piloting and coming up with new degree programs as well. So it's something, like I said, I think they're more forward thinking than most traditional art schools is going to look at this, the fine arts and paints and things of that nature. It's they want to make sure that, people come out of these programs that are they have skill sets that the industry needs when they come out. So
Yeah, and I think from what I've heard in this series of interviews and the familiarity I have, just kind of taking on this series, just learn about a lot of like vision and kind of filling in vision, innovation, and filling in some of those kind of gaps that people who are creative may just not put a lot of attention and energy towards, or people who know some of the business stuff, know some of the more admin sort of, those types of skills, how to apply that to something that may be more creative and how to work in tandem. I think that's filling in like a chasm, a gap that's been out there that I think a lot of people recognize. And also just the variety of people that you can encounter in a classroom. I believe Trish Moore was mentioning between 5 and 105. That's the kind of age bracket of people that are being served, and that's really great.
Absolutely. I do forget they do have like youth programming in the summertime. So absolutely, they reach a mass of different people from different demographics. And that's what I will say about that too. It's like most schools like require you to have like a art or creative background once you go into, but from the graduate level for the the open studies programs, like I didn't have a art background and I got in, and then it's very multidisciplinary backgrounds to kind of go into these programs, and you can help try to pivot your career, because even like you look at the UX design programs and data visualization, there's people from all types of backgrounds. It's like, hey, I want to try this out and change something in my career as well. So
yeah, I mean, data visualization is becoming bigger and bigger. Not only do people want to be able to bring in the numbers, but interpret the numbers, but people want a story that's there, and
Absolutely.
That's something that's coming from UX. That's something that's coming from data visualization. And I went into one of the programs, I believe it was Business of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. And I was there as a client, and having, the people within the program, the students within the program break down this podcast and slice it and dice it and pitch it to me. That was very interesting, and kind of like understanding what I'm doing is more than a creative. I've always kept those two areas, those two sides, very separate, and seeing how they kind of overlap, but for the most part, thinking of them as two disparate things. But now kind of seeing like, no, there is some overlap, and I need to start considering it in that manner.
Absolutely.
So if you had to summarize what you do, right? Like design, you're design wizard. That's what I'm just going to call you. You've earned the role of design wizard in this session.
Right.
How would you summarize, in terms of doing one thing well, how would you summarize what you do? Like, and if I were to summarize this, I'm holding conversations with people. That's what I think I do well. Mm-hmm. So how would you summarize what you do in terms of doing one thing well?
Yeah, I mean, so what I do essentially from a high level, I help companies or firms or organizations innovate in order to create better experiences. And from a service design and business design perspective, I'm looking more holistically.
Yes.
So I'm looking at what's the benefit for like a customer or a user, and I'm looking at what's the benefit for the business overall and the employees working at that business, right? So you see a lot of design disciplines like UX design is usually just looking at a user, or UI, user interface, and down to your graphic designers. But I say I kind of take from a big picture. I work with these other designers as well, but I'm more of the front end on the strategy perspective and saying, okay, what is this business trying to do or be in the next 1 to 2 to 3 or 5 years? Like, are we going to get, displaced by a startup or something? So these are the kind of questions that I'm in conversations with these businesses, like, okay, we're worried about this. What do we need to do in order to innovate? So I would say innovation design strategist is kind of where I kind of sit. And then, but like I said, I work with all designers, not even just designers, data scientists, all different multidisciplinary teams in order to come up with a solution that will appease, like I said, a user, a customer, or the business itself.
So within working cross-functionally, right, with developers, copywriters, everyone, right? Who's the? I think everyone has different traits. Like you're talking with a designer right now, or you're talking with the art department, or you're talking with external affairs, what have you. What comes to mind for you as far as like, all right, this is going to be a softball situation. This is going to be Chinese arithmetic. Like, tell me about those cross-functional relationships. What are the more challenging ones? What are the ones that are kind of like, okay, they speak the language I'm in right now. They get where I'm coming from strategically.
Right. That's a great question. So I'm trying to answer it in a couple of ways. Well, I'll preface this. I think the program between Hopkins and MICA's prepared me for that very well, because you got to think about these two different schools have different personalities as far as the people that go there, who you're interacting with, etc. So I think knowing how to talk to a designer or an artist in one way and being able to shift that conversation with a business person, what do they really care about, kind of helped me play that. So I went to both schools. But I think there's always people, I won't say always, but there's naysayers now to this day. Like when you hear design thinking and human design, it's like, oh, you just gonna come in here, put some post-it notes on the wall and, you know, happy, happy, joy, joy. But I think it's more than that. You got to have to show them like the value. So like we're doing this in order to bring this, and this is the impact it's going to bring. So like from when I talk to a business person, it's like, okay, here's kind of like the case, the business case of what we're doing. This is our business hypothesis. We want to test this in order to see if we can grab more market share, etc. Versus when I talk to the designer, if I need to say, okay, this is the challenge when it comes to people. Like I've worked in government engagements where we're looking at like the future of government benefits. It's like, imagine if your parents are older and they have disabilities and they need to get this type of benefit. Like, how can we make that experience easy for them? So just kind of having that why behind why we're doing this to each demographic, to each person, helps kind of create that case to, or why everybody can come together, converge, and make an impact for the project overall. So I think being able to kind of, like I said, I mean, it's kind of like code switching for different people, but it's like, that's essentially it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. When, in some of the stuff that I'm doing, I'm, in the day job, you might speak to a professor that kind of is coming from their perspective, right? Like, okay, what's the students going to be? How am I going to deliver this? What is the curriculum looking like? Things of that nature. Those are all considerations. And then when you're talking to, let's say, someone in IT or external affairs, how are we going to have this that they're able to use it online if we have to shift and pivot in that manner? And the way that you put it, code switching, is very apt, I think. And really being able to understand what your process is and why you're doing it a certain way. Right. You truly have to be dipped in it. And I've written a few business cases and have had these strategic conversations and really can't take it personal too. But it's like, okay, you're not getting it. I don't think you're going to get it. I
mean, trust me, I still have to like make a case, and sometimes it doesn't go over well, but you just come back and what they say in design, like fail fast and get back up and try again. So that's why you got to just figure out what their personality, what's in it for them, like why is it important to them. And then once you figure that out, it's okay, I need to change this, and maybe I'll create a deck or something that has the impact first, versus like, let me show you the prototype and why it's all good. Like some people like, no, just show me the benefit, the numbers, whatever. So that's how you got to kind of work with it and be able to adapt to different people's personalities. So
it almost feels like a sales conversation at times too. It's like, like I used to work in Verizon back in the day, and I remember we would put together like sales pitches for these different call center calls, and it's like, all right, here's the skin in the game. This is why you should care. So you get that demographic information. This person has 2 kids. It's like, all right, we have these great television things here, or what have you, this great programming. And their question at the end of the day is, why should I buy this? Well, here's the reason why.
Right. It's funny you say that, but certain clients, when I see an email, it's like, okay, I got to talk to this person. I don't know who they are. Like I try to do a quick Google search on them. I look at their LinkedIn. It's like, okay, let me try to figure out some angle where I have a connection or something. So, yeah.
I find I have to do that in this podcast sometimes, where a lot of times I know enough from the person in terms of maybe their background questions and other interviews and things, but I don't know how they're going to relate to me. So I'm like, all right, if I have nothing, it's like, hey man, so what'd you watch today? Just to get an idea. You watching Wild TV? You watching, I only read books. All right, I'm gonna have to keep this very tight breast. So, and I think you touched on this a little bit earlier, but there's another one. Feel free to share. Could you share a life experience that you feel that has kind of influenced your creative or strategic sensibility?
That's a great question. There's multiple life experiences that kind of shaped me. It's funny, I kind of got into, just liking art and creativity overall. Then in high school, I took AP art history. So being in Atlanta, we used to go to the High Museum of Art like almost every month, So it's like, I love this visual aspect. I love them explaining, what these pieces mean and stuff like that. And I think that kind of just kept my curiosity open to wanted to always be able to tap into some type of creative side. So like even me doing design work or learning how to shoot photography, I DJ as well. So like all this art and creativity has always been surrounded by me. Even my mother like played records all the time. So I don't think it's just one thing. It's like a multitude, and even hanging around other creative people that inspire me always kind of keeps me motivated. But I don't have that one smoking gun. It's like, this is it. This changed my life. It's just, it's always been surrounded around me. So, yeah.
Yeah, being in a company of people who have a similar mindset, a similar approach to things.
Right.
Some people will say what iron sharpens iron or what have you, but I just think it's the energy that's around. Like, you would hear about people back in the day, musicians hanging out, and it's like, yeah, it's still a jam session. It's a version of that,
Absolutely.
So let's talk about the fun stuff, right? What is the most fun or exciting point within your process? Like when you're coming up with a design project that you're working on, you're like, all right, is it fun when you're having those initial conversations and like, all right, how briefly can I get this over? Or is it fun once, okay, everyone's put to bed, everyone's good. What's the most fun or exciting part of the process for you?
I think the fun part is actually coming together and actually building some type of prototype or experience or whatever we're going to create. So I would say, most our design process, we start off with doing research. I would say the thing different from most designers, I do traditional, you do traditional ethnographic research, but I also will reach out and I'll do, secondary research, like looking at trends and comparative analysis to different companies and whatnot. During that phase of the project, you don't know what the solution is going to be. So I think I kind of enjoy that. Like, okay, I don't know what this was going to happen, but then after we do research and synthesize this information, then we start building something. And when to see the client excited, so we actually build this experience or prototype of digital, whatever it is, whatever the product we develop, it could be digital, physical, or whatnot. But seeing that client be happy with the results, and it's like we started from scratch with nothing, like nothing in mind, and we actually built this out. Like I always get excited to do that. So that's kind of like what I enjoy and what I see is like building something, like creating. That's what I enjoy the most.
That's the engineering side of things. It's like, and I think the realization of something that was an idea, and it's like, this is where we're at now. Like, I almost feel like when I have an idea or a concept that I write down, and then like, it's like, okay, did this, made this happen, moving in this direction. It's strategically sound. It's making sense. I feel like a proud papa when something, comes to fruition.
This is your child from now on. Exactly.
So, and maybe this doesn't apply, but this is the last real question that I got for you before I get to those rapid fire questions. So what are one or two like traits or that are signatures for you as a designer? And what, like, when someone's looking at one of your like projects and it's like, this is definitely Brandon's, or like, what do you say is a signature of yours perhaps? And, what are you most proud of, I guess, in terms of those sorts of signatures, or maybe a certain project that comes to mind?
That's a great question. I would say most of my last project that I worked on, if you looked at it, since I work in multidisciplinary teams, I think I make my mark on something, but like the visual may be done by a visual designer or something like that. So I think that's a great question. I don't know. Like from a conceptual perspective, it's like I always have input. Like I think thinking about it from all users' perspective, like holistically, and making sure that the project has value for a multitude of people. I think that's how you could probably, my signature is making sure is has viability, it's bringing people what they need, the business got what they wanted, the user or customer got what they wanted. But I wish I could say like, oh, you could look at that design and be like, oh, this is, you can see the white space, that's a signature or something like that. It's harder on these multidisciplinary projects where you're working with at least 3 to 5 people. But let me ponder on that some more. I don't have a specific answer to that right now, but that's a great question.
Well, thank you. I think it is one of those things where I think you touched on it, where the users, I think that's a piece of it. It's like, how crossover is this? How many people are using this, and how many people is it? Because you want something that is going to be adopted by the largest swath of people, not like this is very specialized, because it almost turns into a niche thing. Like, I really like baseball, right? I watch baseball all the time. You don't want a closer. You want someone that's good, but you want like a starter. It's like you can be out there, you can pitch to everyone.
Right. No, that's real. I like that. I like that analogy for sure. For sure.
So I think now is a good time to kind of get to those rapid fire questions. I got 5 of them. They're great. They're fun. I think you're gonna kill them.
How many seconds do I get? This is like, do we have a timer, or I'm just?
We don't have a timer, but we'll frame it like this. First thing that like comes to mind, you don't want to overthink it, but sometimes it might require a little extra seasoning, a little extra, richness in the question and the answer. So I'm gonna start off with more of a softball. I'm sticking with the baseball analogy. Street smarts or book smarts? What do you value more?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I would say street smarts.
Okay. Yeah. So during the last couple of years, people have had a lot of time on their hands to do things. I've seen multiple Guinness World Records broken. What would you say a world record out there that you have the best shot of beating?
Wow, that's a
tough one, isn't it?
That's a tough one. I never even thought about it. What are the latest world records?
At one point, I covered a world record of 2 guys. This is ridiculous, but 2 guys cracking walnuts with their heads. Yeah. It was. I think it was one dude that cracked. It was like he cracked 31 walnuts with his head in 1 minute. The guy he was competing against, because it was head to head, it was 29. So he beat him by 2. That was the record of 31 nuts at that time.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Records are crazy.
That's a crazy. I would say at one point I thought I was becoming a sneakerhead, so I was like, I was probably collecting sneakers, but I know people that collect way more sneakers than me, so I would never have the world record for that. But that's something I do love, but I don't know. I wanted to do this. I wanted to do a 24-hour podcast. I wanted to do a straight 24-hour podcast. I think that's a record I can do, but I need to get my stamina up for it, That's hard. Multiple Red Bulls and coffee. Yeah. I don't know. That's a great one. That's a great question. There's nothing that comes to mind. Like, I like hiking. I would probably listen to music for 24 hours straight, but I would. Yeah, that's a good one. But I'm pretty sure someone's broken that.
Yeah, like some of the records that are out there are wild. Like, sometimes it's time-based records, sometimes it's volume-based. I remember seeing one that was like finishing a whole Capri Sun, like the normal size Capri Sun, in like 15 seconds. I was like, someone's gonna beat that record. What are you saying?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yes, it's crazy. But
so, in addition to all of these records being broken and all of that stuff over the last few years, we've had, and this might be a record for you, longest Zoom meeting. What is the funniest thing you've ever witnessed during a Zoom meeting?
Of course, you've always seen people that when
things they shouldn't be doing
or something, like they stand up. I've seen that. Someone passed gas on a Zoom meeting, think they're on mute. That's a funny one.
I don't know why that's funny.
Yeah, but
it's like your mic's on, like.
So those are some good ones that come to mind, or someone falling asleep. That's another one. Yeah.
This is one dude. He has an Instagram or what have you, and he will go to sporting events and he'll put a green screen in the background like he's not at a sporting event. He's like, yeah. I've
seen that where people, like, they're on vacation and they got to get on the Zoom. Yeah, like you be in a pool. Yeah, that's really cool. I haven't tried that. I don't think I would, just in case. Who knows? But I guess I'm more risk averse. I'm not going to do that. But
yeah, because you don't want to be the person that gets called out. Like, you're on a group, like the gallery settings, and there's like 50 people on there, and they happen to see you, and it's like, I'm just going to put my screen on black.
That's hilarious. Yeah. What about you? What's the funniest thing you've seen?
I want to say I've heard. So, in the office, you can tell people are kind of engaged and when they're not engaged. And it was one person that didn't put their phone yeah, they were on their iPhone. They didn't put it on mute, so you can hear The Price is Right for the duration of the call in the background. And so they clearly were not listening. They weren't on the call, so you just hear just all of the sound effects from Price is Right. And someone was like, "Well, I guess they bet the wrong amount on that one." I guess it was really it's really funny.
Yeah. I think I actually did something similar. It was a day where I had back-to-back meetings and I did not eat lunch. So I was like, let me just put something in my air fryer real quick. And I forgot to put myself on mute. And someone was like, is someone vacuuming back there? I was like, oh, let me do that. So I had to put mine on mute. But that was one of my embarrassing moments from Zoom, being on Zoom since the pandemic. So yeah.
It's one of the wild things where the person that's the host of the Zoom, they got tired of your nonsense and they just like boot you out and don't let you back in.
Oh, yeah.
I've had that happen one time and I was like, I'm sorry, I was actually working.
Right.
Here's the last two. What was your last impulse buy?
Had to be some sneakers. I'm a sneakerhead. It's just like, I saw them. They were on Sneakers app. I was like, sometimes, I'm not sure you know what a Sneakers app is, a Nike app, but like you try to get the latest one. I was like, I'll just try and see. And, I got the notification. It's like, and, I actually want them. So that was my last impulse buy. It's usually some type of sneaker for sure. Yeah.
You had a nice JPEG that said "got 'em." You're like, yeah,
exactly.
Hell yeah.
I don't do the posting. I used to, but I was like, I don't need people to know what shoes I got. They'll see them when I put them on my feet. So yeah.
I used to do this thing because I'll have like every now and again I'll buy shoes like at a weird time, and then I won't wear them for like a couple of years, and then I just pull them out, and they're like, "Where'd you get those from?" I'm like, oh, these old things.
Exactly. I've been doing the same thing. Like I said, I bought sneakers, and I was like, I forgot I bought these. I look in the closet like, why did I? Because I was like, I need some black shoes. I was like, I actually bought some black shoes 3 months ago. I just haven't worn them yet. So yeah.
And this is the last one. This is probably the biggest one, but so sometimes we can't bury our failures, our mess ups, our F ups, as you will. What would you say your biggest mess up as a designer has been? And from that, what did you learn from it? Things of that nature.
My biggest mess up as a designer. I would say initially when I got into the design field, switching from engineering, I would say not giving people or even giving myself the time in order to build something, or like the way I think, I would try to project that onto other people. So it's like I would ask people like, why are you doing this way? Like, this is not going to get us toward a solution, instead of me giving them the time and space to do that. So I had a great manager one time. He would, it's like, I see where that's going, but let me just let you work on that for a few days. I don't know exactly what you're doing, but then it's like, and it came out good. He was like, I saw that and I was like, okay, I need to take that when I'm dealing with more junior designers. Sometimes I'll kind of, I won't say force my will, but I was like, we should do this way in this cadence or whatnot. So yeah. I won't say it's a failure, but it's something that I figured out from a more of a management style. It's like, I need to allow people the space and opportunity to build something, even though I may not know the direction it's going. It may feel kind of weird, but yeah, like I think that's one of the, I would say, opportunity areas where I learned to just, sit back, embrace ambiguity a little bit more and see where something goes, instead of like making it align to the way I want to see it. So yeah. And that's something I've done that on a few projects, and then it's like, okay, I need to stop doing that. So
yeah, it can be a challenge.
I have lots of failures. I'm trying to think about other ones. But just the process, allowing the process to work is one of the things I said I need to do better.
It'd have been great if you would have said like, no failures, never lost. I was like, wow. But I find it's partially one of these quotes out there where we talk about like people who consider themselves masters of their field, and people who are always like trying to grow, and they kind of lend themselves to being more of a novice. I prefer to be in that kind of novice lane, because I think you keep learning different things. You're able to empathize and kind of learn things in different ways. But I think when people view themselves as being a master and they have to return to something that they feel like they've mastered, they're ill-equipped.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But like thinking about client presentations, or like I said, those times where you don't know the demographic and you're presenting this idea and they like, they just
you missed the mark there.
No, like go back. Like I've been on projects like, no, go back, redo that over. Like, so those are, I mean, they are failures to a certain extent, but then, being able to recover from that, pick yourself up, and, having resilience is something that I think I possess that, you got to kind of brush your shoulders off and keep it moving. So
What was the thing you said earlier? Fail quickly or what have you?
yeah, fail fast, fail quickly.
Yeah.
Keep it moving. So yeah.
So that's pretty much all I had for the questions today. And I thank you for being on this podcast. And in that, I want to invite and encourage you to, the floor is yours. So feel free to tell the fine folks where to check you out, any of your work, and any final words on the Open Studies program.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So check me out. My is at Brandon D as in David Ball, Ball. I'm on Instagram. My LinkedIn handle is the same. I am on Twitter, but I don't tweet because I have some interesting thoughts that I probably need to keep to myself. So I don't tweet too much unless it's like retweeting something I saw from someone else or letting someone know about an art event or anything like that. But yeah, so that's where you can find me. Facebook as well, but I'm not a big on Facebook either these days. Open Studies, what's something to think about from Open Studies? I just think the programs that they're doing, I'm not sure if they are privy to let people know, but there's some new programs coming out with Open Studies I think people should be looking forward to that, if you are creative or just want to, tap into the creative field and want to put your stamp on it and thinking about pivoting in your career, you should look into MICA Open Studies for sure because the design field, a lot of different companies and corporations are now embracing it. I know companies that are actually paying their employees to go back to get design degrees now. So it's a good space to be in. So just to keep your eyes and ears open for all the latest and greatest from Open Studies. So, yeah.
So there you have it, folks. I want to again thank Brandon Ball for coming on to the podcast. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, design, community, problem solving in and around your neck of the woods. You just got to look for it.